After 16 hours of live fire drills and close-quarters combat training, Navy SEALs began packing up their gear, laughing about mistakes and critiquing rookies. No one paid attention to the quiet woman wiping down rifles in the corner. She looked like temporary support staff brought in to handle cleanup while the rail operators moved on to debrief. But when one SEAL noticed a worn patch partially hidden under her jacket, his whisper spread through the room like wildfire. That patch was tied to operations these men only studied in classified briefings, and the woman wearing it had just spent the entire week being completely invisible. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about quiet professionals who never ask for recognition, consider subscribing. What happened next would teach these elite warriors the most important lesson of their careers. The sun hung low over the Naval Special Warfare Training Compound, casting long shadows across the shooting range as dust still lingered in the air from the day's drills. After 16 grueling hours of live fire exercises, close-quarters combat scenarios, and weapons qualifications, the atmosphere had finally shifted from intense focus to exhausted relief. Navy SEALs moved across the range in loose groups, stripping magazines, clearing rifles, and joking about the mistakes they had witnessed during training. The controlled chaos of men who had survived another brutal day filled the space with laughter and the metallic clink of equipment being broken down. Revka Salat stood at the edge of the activity, moving through the background with a clipboard and cleaning supplies. She wore faded green tactical pants, a tan undershirt, and a dark jacket with the sleeves rolled to her elbows. No name tape adorned her chest. No rank sat on her collar. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight, functional bun that hadn't loosened despite the heat and hours of work. She approached a rack of 416 Hong Kong dollars rifles, selected one, and began wiping down the barrel and receiver with methodical precision. Her movements carried an economy that only came from thousands of repetitions, each gesture minimal and purposeful. Two SEALs stood nearby, still in their gear, discussing the day's performance. The younger one, a lean operator named Jax with sun-bleached hair and a fresh sunburn across his nose, gestured animatedly as he spoke. His teammate, Cormac, broader and quieter, shook his head while checking his magazine pouches. Neither man glanced in Revka's direction as she worked less than 10 feet away. Jax wiped sweat from his forehead. "Did you see Petty Officer Harlow on that breach? I thought he was going to stack on the wrong door." Cormac snorted. "Man's going to get smoked in debrief. Instructor Beale doesn't let that slide." Jax's eyes drifted past Cormac and landed briefly on Revka as she racked the cleaned rifle and reached for another. "Who's the chick? New armorer?" Cormac barely looked. "Don't know. Contractor, maybe. They rotate people through for inventory." Jax shrugged and returned to his own gear. Neither gave her another thought. Revka continued her work in silence, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as conversations flowed around her like water around a stone. She overheard everything. She reacted to nothing. As she inspected the next rifle, small details became visible that the SEALs around her never noticed. Old scars marked her knuckles, burn marks that had healed into smooth, discolored patches. A thin laceration ran across her left palm, the kind that came from gripping something sharp under pressure. When she moved, there was no wasted motion, no hesitation, no adjustment. Her eyes constantly scanned the environment, tracking movement, assessing positions, noting every person who entered or exited the range, even as she focused on the task before her. An older SEAL, Chief Warrant Officer Aldrich Tunn, walked past carrying ammunition crates stacked 3 high. He had the weathered look of someone who had spent 2 decades in the sun and salt air, with deep lines around his eyes and gray threading through his close-cropped hair. He glanced at Revka as he passed, then away. No acknowledgement, no greeting. She might as well have been part of the equipment racks. A younger operator, Enan Breck, nearly bumped into her while scrolling through his phone. He jerked back at the last second. "Oh, sorry, ma'am. Didn't see you there." He didn't wait for a response. He was already walking away, thumbs moving across his screen, attention elsewhere. Revka didn't look up. She simply moved to the next rifle in the rack, her expression unchanged, her focus absolute. The range continued to empty as operators filtered toward the debrief building. The noise level dropped. The energy shifted from release to routine. After 16 relentless hours of live-fire drills, breach and clear repetitions, and close-quarters combat training, the Navy SEALs finally began to stand down. The sun dipped low behind the western ridgeline, turning the dust in the air into a glowing haze that clung to the training compound like smoke after a battle. The range, which had been a place of sharp commands and controlled violence all day, slowly transformed into a space of exhaustion and release. Operators laughed as they stripped magazines and cleared chambers, replaying mistakes and near misses with the casual bravado that came only after surviving another punishing evolution. Someone cursed when a sling tangled. Someone else mimicked an instructor's voice to the amusement of a small group. Boots crunched against gravel. Steel rang softly as rifles were placed into racks. The soundscape of elite warriors unwinding filled the compound. No one noticed the woman in the corner. She moved quietly along the rifle racks, wiping down barrels and receivers with a clean cloth, her presence blending seamlessly into the background. If anyone had been asked later, they might have said she was support staff, an armorer, maybe, or a contractor assigned to cleanup detail. She didn't wear a name tape. She didn't wear rank. Her jacket was plain, dark, and unremarkable, the kind issued in bulk without thought. Her name was Revka Salit. She had been invisible all week. The SEALs joked loudly nearby, unaware that the woman less than 10 feet away could disassemble and reassemble their weapons faster than most of them. She selected each 416 Hong Kong dollars with care, checking the chamber by instinct, fingers moving with an efficiency that came only from years of repetition under conditions far more hostile than this controlled training range. Her hands told a story no one bothered to read. Old scars crossed her knuckles, white lines against weathered skin. Burn marks traced faint patterns along her wrists, the kind left by flash and friction, not accidents. A thin laceration ran across her left palm, healed but permanent, a souvenir from gripping something sharp when letting go had not been an option. She worked without hurry, without pause, without drawing attention. 2 SEALs stood nearby, still half-geared, sweat-darkened uniforms clinging to their frames. One of them, a younger operator named Jax, animated and restless, wiped his forehead with the back of his glove. "Did you see Harlow on that second breach?" Jax said, shaking his head. Guy stacked on the wrong side like it was day one. Cormac, broader and older, checked his magazine pouches methodically. "Instructor Beale's going to eat him alive in debrief." Jax laughed, then his eyes drifted past Cormac. They landed briefly on Revka as she racked a cleaned rifle and reached for another. "Hey," he said casually, lowering his voice. "Who's the chick?" Cormac glanced once, barely registering her presence. "No idea. Contractor, maybe. Armory support. They rotate people through." Jax shrugged. "She's been here all week, hasn't she?" Cormac nodded without interest. "Probably inventory audit or something." And just like that, she was dismissed. Revka continued her work, her expression neutral, her eyes focused. But she heard everything. Every joke. Every critique. Every careless comment made by men who believed the room belonged entirely to them. Her gaze flicked subtly across the range, not lingering, never obvious, but constantly tracking movement. She noted who carried live rounds longer than necessary. Who violated muzzle discipline when relaxed. Who unconsciously favored one side while standing. Who checked their corners even when there were no corners left. She catalogued them all. Chief Warrant Officer Aldrich Tunn passed by carrying stacked ammo crates. He was a veteran of 2 decades, the kind of man whose authority was carried in posture rather than voice. He glanced at Revka, then away, already mentally moving on to the next task. She did not acknowledge him. A younger operator nearly collided with her while staring at his phone. "Oh, sorry, ma'am," he muttered, already stepping away. She said nothing. The range slowly emptied as operators drifted toward the debrief building. The laughter faded. The energy shifted. What remained was routine. Revka placed the final rifle into its rack and wiped her hands clean. She should have left then. But that was when everything changed. Jax returned to retrieve a forgotten piece of gear. As he passed the corner where Revka stood, something caught his eye, not her face, not her posture, but the edge of fabric beneath her jacket. A patch. Worn. Faded. Old. His steps slowed. The patch was partially concealed, its stitching frayed, its colors muted by time and hard use.